I didn't expect to feel out of place at my own sister's birthday dinner, but I did. The moment I walked in, I knew something was off. Everyone was dressed nicely, the restaurant was elegant, and laughter filled the air. But then I saw my name card. It was placed at the kids' table. First, I thought it was a joke. Maybe someone mixed up the seating. But no, my brother-in-law saw me looking confused and gave me a smug little smirk, like he knew exactly what was happening. And no one said a word. My sister was busy greeting guests, and the rest of the family acted like everything was perfectly normal. I sat down quietly, feeling the sting of embarrassment settle in. Around me were kids between 5 and 10 years old, coloring on the paper menus and sipping juice from plastic cups. I could barely hear the adult conversation from across the room. It felt like I had been deliberately excluded, pushed aside like I didn't belong. And honestly, I had no idea why. The worst part? My brother-in-law kept glancing over, clearly enjoying every second of it. It wasn't just a random seating mistake. It was planned. That smirk said it all. But why? What had I done to deserve this kind of treatment from family? My mind raced with possibilities, trying to piece together the reason behind this quiet humiliation. As the dinner went on, little moments and conversations started to reveal cracks in the happy family image they tried to show. Something deeper was going on, and this dinner was only the beginning. I kept smiling, nodding politely, pretending not to care. But inside, I was already preparing for what I needed to do next. Because one thing was clear, this wasn't just about a dinner seat. It wasn't always like this between me and my sister. We were close growing up, inseparable even. She was the one who used to stick up for me when other kids made fun of me. The one who knew all my secrets. But ever since she married Eric, things changed. He was always polite in front of others, but I never felt comfortable around him. Something about his energy, it just felt off. He had this quiet way of putting people down. Little comments, passive-aggressive jokes, making you feel small without ever raising his voice. I tried to brush it off at first for my sister's sake. But over the years, the distance between us grew. When I got the invite to her birthday dinner, I thought maybe things were turning around. I even picked out a thoughtful gift. Something that reminded us of a memory we shared as kids. But from the moment I arrived, it was clear this night wasn't going to be about reconnecting. It felt more like I was being tested or worse, mocked. The kids at the table were sweet, though. One of them asked if I was someone's babysitter. I laughed it off, but inside I felt hollow. The adults chatted on, toasting, taking pictures while I sat in the corner invisible. Eric kept whispering things to my sister and she just smiled, not even glancing in my direction. It was like I didn't exist anymore. I started thinking back. Was there something I said? Something I missed? But the more I tried to make sense of it, the more I realized this wasn't about one moment. This had been building for a long time. I just hadn't seen it until now. And what happened next made everything even clearer. As I sat there, pretending to sip from a juice box one of the kids handed me, I kept replaying things in my head. There had to be more to this than just a seating arrangement. It felt personal, intentional. Eric wasn't just being smug for no reason. Something about the way he kept glancing at me like he was waiting for a reaction told me this was part of some bigger game. I tried catching my sister's eye a few times, hoping for even the smallest sign that she noticed what was going on. But she avoided me completely, like I was just another guest she barely knew. Then something clicked. A few months back, my sister and I had a disagreement over a family matter, nothing major or so I thought. Our cousin had asked me for help with a private issue and I stepped in. My sister thought I was overstepping. We hadn't really spoken since. Could Eric be using that as an excuse to drive a wedge further between us? As the dinner went on, I noticed subtle things. The way the other adults interacted with me or didn't. Some gave tight smiles, others didn't acknowledge me at all. Like there was something unspoken floating around. A few cousins I used to be close with acted distant. And when Eric made a casual joke about some people not knowing their place, everyone laughed except me. Stung more than I expected. That's when I started piecing things together. There was a quiet campaign going on. Whispers, exclusion, shifting alliances within the family. And I was clearly being pushed out. But why now? And what was Eric gaining from it? It wasn't just about pride or power. It felt like something deeper. Something that had been building in the background for a while. The room grew quieter as the birthday cake was carried out, Candles flickering in the dimmed lights, everyone's eyes fixed on my sister. In that moment I felt the weight of every look in my direction. The kids chattered about the sugar rush they couldn't wait for, but I barely heard them. All I could think about was the way Eric's smile sharpened when the server paused in front of me, as if he was daring me to stand up and claim my place among the adults. My heart pounded as my sister blew out her candles. The applause echoed in my ears, but no one invited me to join the circle. I sank lower in my chair, clutching the small gift bag I'd brought. Inside was a photo album I'd made, full of memories we'd shared. I'd imagined her face lighting up when she opened it. Now I wasn't even sure she'd unwrap it at all. When the lights came back on, Eric leaned in across the table, resting one arm on the polished wood. His voice was low, but I caught every word. "Why don't you stay here with the kids?" he whispered, nodding toward my place. There was something triumphant in his gaze, like he'd won a game I didn't even know we were playing. My fingers tightened around the bag's handles. Around us, relatives exchanged glances, the smiles on their faces strained. It was as though they too were waiting for my reaction. I forced myself to stand, holding the bag at my side. The murmur of voices grew louder, a tide of whispered curiosity washing over me. My sister looked up, surprise and something unreadable in her eyes. Before I could speak, before I could demand an explanation or apologize for whatever I'd done to deserve this, Eric cleared his throat and stood as well. Everyone fell silent, the moment stretched tight like a drawn bow. I took a deep breath, ready to speak my truth or finally understand his. But just as my lips parted, the door to the restaurant swung open, and a figure I never expected stepped inside, locking eyes on me. The second I saw who had walked in, my breath caught. It was Jenna, Eric's ex. The one no one in the family ever talked about, the one he pretended didn't exist. She hadn't been around in years, and honestly I thought she was out of the picture for good. But there she was, dressed sharply, confident, walking straight toward our table like she belonged there. And the look on Eric's face? Panic. Real panic. His smug expression cracked for the first time all evening. The room tensed. Conversations halted. My sister's face drained of color as Jenna approached and stopped just behind me. "Sorry I'm late," she said casually, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "Had to come say happy birthday. Oh, and drop something off." She held up a small envelope, waving it slightly. Eric stepped forward, trying to recover, mumbling something about a misunderstanding, and how now wasn't the time. But Jenna wasn't interested in his timing. She looked right at me and handed me the envelope. "Thought you should have this," she said softly. "You've been left in the dark long enough." I took it, my hand trembling. Eric reached for it, but I stepped back. Something told me this was the piece I'd been missing, the reason behind the smirks, the exclusion, the sudden shift in family dynamics. Jenna turned and walked out as quickly as she came, leaving behind a silence so thick it felt like the room couldn't breathe. Eric didn't say a word. My sister just stared at the envelope like it might explode. My fingers hovered over the flap, heart pounding. All eyes were on me now. Whatever was inside, it wasn't just going to change the night. It was going to change everything. With every eye in the room watching, I slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded piece of paper, and behind it, a photo. The moment I saw what it was, my chest tightened. It was a picture of Eric and another woman, not Jenna, not my sister. It was recent, taken at what looked like a hotel lounge. The timestamp was only 2 weeks old. And clipped to the photo was a receipt, clearly showing a dinner for two under a different name. I flipped the paper over and saw a short note scribbled in Jenna's handwriting. "He's been lying to all of you. You weren't crazy." The room was dead silent. My sister looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Eric stepped toward me, voice low and urgent, trying to explain, spinning a weak excuse about business meetings and old friends. But no one was buying it, not anymore. The smirk he wore all evening was gone. The control he thought he had was slipping right through his hands. My sister took the photo from me with shaking fingers, and as she stared at it, something in her broke. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. "Is this why you tried to isolate me from everyone? From my own family?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, exposed, with nothing left to say. But before anyone could react further, my cousin, quiet all night, spoke up. "You think that's the worst of it?" she said, pulling out her phone. "There's more." Everyone turned. And just like that, a new silence fell over the table. The envelope had pulled back the curtain. But what was hiding behind it was deeper than any of us expected. This wasn't just a family dinner anymore. It was the start of everything unraveling. Everyone waited as my cousin unlocked her phone and pulled up screenshots. Texts, photos, even voice messages. Eric had been keeping secrets, not just from my sister, but from the entire family. Business trips that weren't real. Money being moved around. Comments he made about family members behind their backs. It all spilled out in the middle of that fancy birthday dinner, with half-eaten cake and untouched champagne still on the table. My sister didn't cry. She just sat there silent, holding the photo like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Eventually, she stood up and walked out, without a word. Eric tried to follow, but no one moved aside for him. My cousin handed the phone to another relative and slowly, it passed from hand to hand. The room didn't erupt in yelling. Didn't need to. The truth had already done the damage. I quietly picked up the gift I brought and placed it on my sister's empty chair. I hadn't come to stir anything up, but somehow I ended up right in the middle of everything. As I left the restaurant, the night air felt different, lighter in a strange way. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel small. In the days that followed, things shifted. My sister reached out. We talked not just about Eric but about how we drifted and how much we missed who we used to be. She said she was thankful I came that night, even if it didn't feel that way at first. The truth hurt, but it also opened a door. And maybe that's what family does sometimes, breaks then slowly comes back together. That night at the kids' table? It started as a quiet humiliation. But in the end, it became the reason everything finally came to light.